Discovery, go and throttle up. Going throttle up.
All right. How's everybody doing? Space Streamer Man's about to play the 12-year-old space game that's still amazing. Amazing is the answer to that. All right. All right. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Dude, it is. Yeah. It's 12 years old. Actually, if you count early access, a little bit older than that. Yeah. June of 2011. Frick me. EJ got a haircut? I wouldn't call it a haircut. I'd call it just a cut. Because there's no hair left. There's no hair. There ain't no hair left, man. I'd just say cut. Looks clean. Yep, yep. Needed a reset, dude. Hey, Dave, what's going on? Looking good? Looking clean? Thanks, Audrey. I appreciate it. See, I got this problem. I don't think you necessarily have this problem. My hair's falling out. Yeah, that's good. You know, it's just the whole bald thing. I'm pretty sure you don't have to worry about that, but did you catch the guy that did it? Yeah, the guy looked like your mom. Oh! Yeah. Not quite manly level, but yeah, we're more aerodynamic now. Yes, yes. All right. So, we're going to play Kerbal for a little bit. Yes, Mach 5 reaction times. Because I'm fast as frick, boy! My Widow's Peak is getting so bad. Sherpas are offering climbing tours. It does keep getting burned off by Starship landing on your head. Yeah, that's true. That's true. The Vulcan build. I kind of... We could work on the Vulcan build, but I have some ideas that I want to mess with. Okie dokie? Comprende? I have some ideas that I want to mess with. I think I've built up the emotional capacity to put myself through another Kerbal engineering development cycle, Kerbal 1 engineering development cycle. I think I've built up the mental capacity to withstand it for at least a little while. What's your ideas, Mr. Space Strimmer Man? You know, there was all this, dude. Hearing Mike Griffin talk again brought up some feelings, dude. And I was reading some views people have of what his testimony was yesterday, and man, did I get a little annoyed. I'm not gonna lie to you, I got a little pissed off. Me getting mad? Jeez, that never happens. Dude, there were people. There were people that were saying, like, you know, Mike Griffin said that, you know, Artemis is completely out of sync. It's ridiculous. And I kind of agree with that. There's really no kind of syndication to this thing, right? You're not even sure what the missions are past Artemis 5, right? Like, and even if NASA is, they aren't telling us, right? I mean, we have an idea, but there's no, like, dedicated architecture, right? It's like, oh, okay, maybe, you know, Artemis 5 is most likely going to be a gateway assembly mission or something like that. Maybe Artemis 4, who knows? I mean, there is flexibility in the timelines, but it's not like conclusive set missions on a set engineering cycle, right? And once again, dude, I think I've said my piece about Artemis. I don't need to say nothing about it. Like, like sitting here and saying, like, you know, it's so bad, that ain't gonna help much, right? Sing us a song, Mr. Space Strimmer Man. No. Hello, Space Strimmer Man. What's up, Jared? How are you? Oops. Anyway.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
I also just cut my hair 7 years. Nice, Dave. There you go. Hey, this isn't space news. Yeah, I know. We're, Jack, 52 months. Hope all is well. Dude, check out this frickin' the frickin' gunner's mate haircut going on here. See that? What do you think of that? Anyway, I was thinking about it. Jumping cheese. All right, cool. That's the response I was expecting. Bosun's mate. There you go. Quit playing with your dinghy. It came off of soft when it made the program sound esoteric. And dude, I was reading like some people had the stones to say that, you know, Constellation was the same way, and I'm like, but how do you figure? You know, especially with, you know, reading about how fiscal year 2008 appropriations went for NASA, they basically skipped an authorization act, and they skipped an authorization act in the middle of a development cycle for a launch vehicle. Like, how can people say, like, Constellation was a boondoggle? Yeah, of course it's a boondoggle. If you say you want to buy a Ferrari, and you have the money for a Pontiac Fiero, you're gonna be very disappointed, right? Like, you know, you're gonna buy the Fiero. It's like, oh, this is like a Ferrari. No, it's not. It's not like a Ferrari at all. Hey, you scratched my anchor, right? Like, dude. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to put the weight of the world on my shoulders, but it's hilarious to me that, you know, like, not hilarious. I guess the words I'm trying to look for, what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of crazy to me how people think that, you know, like, to this day, people think, oh, Constellation was a boondoggle. Constellation was not a boondoggle. Absolutely not. No way. It was underfunded. Which is the exact reason why Artemis is in the boondoggle that it's in right now. That's really interesting to me how it, you know, it can be true for, it can't be true for Artemis, but it can be true for Constellation. Like, same stuff. Same poop sandwich, different flavor, I guess. One's solid, the other one isn't, right? Yeah, there's a picture in your head you didn't want. What is a boondoggle? Nothing, don't worry about it. If it's red, it has to be fast. Yeah, it's very interesting to me. That's very strange to me that people are making that same argument. Because if you think about... Here. If you think about how the Constellation program was supposed to work, like, if you look at how this all kind of came on the books, you know, you had a flight. Like, okay, so think about this for a second, all right? Program came on the books in 2004, right? And it was flying stuff, albeit basically duds for doing aerodynamic testing and whatnot, right? This was testing 5-segment boosters, and it had basically a dud upper stage with a boilerplate. But that's how, you know, that's how the Saturn, that's how Apollo did it, right? So that's Ares 1X, which I still think is a very, very beautiful looking rocket. Like, I know there are other spaceflight influencers that think it looks ridiculous, right? I dig it. I think it looks amazing, personally. I think it's a really beautiful looking rocket. Sorry, my boots came undone. Looks weird but cool. Weird but cool is basically the aesthetic for most spacecraft. The space shuttle looks weird, but it's cool looking. Doesn't look like any other plane you've ever seen, right? So, like, if you think about it, dudes, you know, we went from nothing and a Rudd from the space shuttle that took 7 souls, and we're coming up to the anniversary of that. Right? To doing flight tests. There's the MLAS, which was actually, MLAS was really freaking cool. This was a prototype for a really, really crazy launch escape system for Orion. They were really starting to work on integrated LESs, right? So think kind of like Dragon, right? Look at that thing. Note the fins, just like on Dragon's trunk. This was in 2008, guys. Just putting it out there. So, the reason why I don't think Constellation was as much of a boondoggle as people think is because despite all the underfunding, despite all this, right? They were still doing flight testing and prototyping. They were out there actually launching something. They were doing pad aborts, right? That's cool. I like that shark finned abort system. I think that's really cool, right? Ares 1 should have become operational. Right, so, you know, despite all the underfunding, in just 5 years, they started... You were mid-development for a launch vehicle when you decided, right before a flight test, when you decided to, not appropriate funds, right? I don't understand how people can say that it's a boondoggle when... I don't understand how people can say that it's a boondoggle when stuff like that, when you literally missed a fiscal year of funding. Well, that would doom any program. Missing a year of funding for Artemis right now would push the missions back 5 years easily. Stopping everything and starting it up again 5 years easily for Artemis 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that would be catastrophically bad. It's just, that's very strange to me. And maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Yeah, I mean, I still think the Ares 1X is just look at this freaking thing. Look at this monster. You're thinking too logically about it. No, yeah, it still is kind of like weird to me, but anyway, speaking of cool tech, I know what hot staging is, but any chance you can do 30 seconds on how the lower stage doesn't explode when they do it? Oh yeah, sure. Sure, dude. That'd be a good segue into Kerbal. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this isn't just, I said my piece. I said, et cetera, et cetera. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I've always wanted to do a kind of Kerbal-esque integrated constellation architecture. So, what I would really like to do is see if we can tackle this type of build in a mission mode style save. I don't think I'm good enough right now. I don't think my skills are good enough. I'm pretty rusty with KSP. Look at how long it took to do the stupid Vulcan build. I would have gotten that done in an hour, last year at this time. I'm a little bit rusty, but I would like to see if we can figure out a way to do Ares 1, Ares 5 style architecture, and maybe even go along with the shuttle. Because, remember, I've tried to tackle this problem before of making a pad that can launch SLS or the space shuttle. Mission mode style, where you have to build the thing. It's possible. I think I can do it. I'm pretty sure I'm smart enough to get that done. We already have the shuttle. We already have that. So, there's that. But there were some insane engineering challenges that we had to figure out with KSP to get this to work right. What do Ares 1 and Ares 5 have in common? Oh, explain why NASA is so spooked about making long-term plans. Yeah, Aqualux, the more I think about it, the more I think a 5-year plan is a good idea. So, Kix, how much time do you have for hot staging? For the hot staging explanation. I mean, I got the shuttle. I'll just bring the shuttle up and I'll go from there. Hot staging is not going to take very long. That's pretty straightforward stuff. You got some time. All right, man. All right, give me one moment. I gotta find that shuttle stack. Where are you? That's NG. We need CTS5. That's the station master file. That's the stack prototype file. We need the block file. Block file is up here. There we go. Integrating the SRBs will be challenging, for sure. Absolutely. I can't segment stack SRBs, so we have to figure out a way to lift that thing reliably with something that doesn't break, which is going to be, like I said, that's going to be a little bit of a tough thing to do. The booster weighs 144 tons. So, we have CTS5, and CTS5 might be a good place to start, right? But I was thinking some type of more integrated architecture, could work. I mean, I did build out CTS5 to have the provisions. I built out CTS5 to have the provisions for to be built on a pad. We have all the Kraken tech on this thing. So the reason why I did it isn't like I did build it so we could stack this thing. It's possible. But the big reason why I did it is so the separation sequence mimics the actual one. Basically, the boosters have to slide out of the pin during separation, which is how the real one works. There's basically a ball in a cup here, and there's a pin on the SRB, right? And then there's a cup on the external tank, and the pin goes into the cup, and when you separate, it goes backwards first and then out. I did it to mimic the separation systems. Now, this isn't exactly... This doesn't look exactly like what holds the forward SRB attachment point. It's actually a single piece. But I needed room for the docking port, so I split it over two. Ball in a cup. Ball in a cup. Ball in a cup. And then we have location pins with same vessel interaction here on the shuttle. I do have a supplementary strut there, but we don't necessarily need that. You could find a way to auto strut this if you really wanted to. Or we could put the service gantries in and Kerbal could run struts on the stack. Whatever. You did what in your cup? Yeah, that's why I wanted segmented SRBs. Yeah, I know what you mean. Anyways, so I'm not necessarily sure I want to start with building with the orbiter yet. I think starting with building out an Ares 1 style vehicle would probably be better. However, I already have something kind of like this. Did you manage to fly this one? Kelsey, this, yeah, I built an entire space station with this in the months leading up to KSP 2. Yeah, this shuttle stack launched a bunch of times building this thing. Here, I'll show you. Keep in mind, this is stock. This is a stock space station with the 2 DLCs for KSP. Check that out. How's that for a space station? It even has the robotic arm and the mobile base system. The traverse can move back and forth. Yeah. This can move back and forth. It can move back and forth on modules that were not built together. I built this so it attaches, and then this thing works on a robotic servo and can move back and forth. Yeah. Yeah, so the mobile base with the robotic arm can actually slide back and forth on my integrated truss system. It's an idea that was borrowed from the ISS and from Space Station Freedom. It works. Oh yeah, it works. We have RCS balls as basically our bearings, and the I-beam is the track. Yep. And then the cow controller controls position with telescoping hydraulics. And how it moves from side to side is here. I'll show you. Ready? Here, play. Watch. The arm gave me some issues here and there, but we were able to fix those issues. Watch. Yeah, mobile base. And then the arm can fold out in the RMS deploy sequencer. Check this out. And then that is the, okay, the fine control. Yep. And this is built exactly the same way that Canadarm 2 is built. And yeah, we could just grab stuff. We can grab different modules, and I'll be honest, figuring out inverse kinematics with this was a little bit difficult, and I ended up using a smaller vehicle to put together a lot of these modules in the end. But I do have a station with a robotic arm. Hey Arsenal, maybe I missed some Kerbal streams, but this seems like the coolest stuff you've ever done. This was done about a year ago at this time, building up to KSP 2. I built a new shuttle out in the summer of 2022, CTS-5, which is the 5th generation Collins. It's the 5th iteration of Collins. My first iteration of Collins was in 2014. And this is the station that I built with it. I'll show you, Arsenal. I don't know if you've ever seen this thing. What rocket was it you made that had hot staging? I don't think I've ever successfully done a hot staging rocket. Yeah. So, the 5th generation Collins orbiter is about as real as I can make a... about as real as I could make a... Oh, what's the right way to say this? It's as real as I could make a shuttle stack in KSP. I'm not sure if we could get any realer. The only way we could get more real with this is if we like, built a pad for it. Off-topic question. Do schools near you close for Martin Luther King Day? Yes. I know I've seen A Collins, but I don't think I've seen this one. This Collins is... So, Arsenal, for all intents and purposes, this thing flies exactly like the shuttle. It flies... It is a Kerbalized space shuttle in stock KSP. It should work exactly like the real one. Like, if you go and read the shuttle operations manual, I borrowed a lot of operations and functions on this craft directly from that. It is about as good as I can make a shuttle. It's as good as I can make Collins. It is... It's crazy. Right down to the panels. The panels work like tiles. We figured out that hierarchical position matters for how the game fluxes heat, how the game moves heat around. So if you put all the tiles, for instance, in a sub-assembly component like that, see how that one is like the root and then it moves down? Well, this one's flying up in front. It'll actually flex the heat through the panels. Panels don't break, despite the panels themselves not having a high temperature, right? If you look, the max temperature of this is 2000 K, which you're going to encounter 2600 during re-entry, right? But the tiles are attached to the nose cone, and the nose cone fluxes all the heat, and it fluxes the heat through the tiles. The tile, my panels on this thing basically work like a gigantic heat sink. That's not exactly how the thermal tiles on the shuttle work, but it's, for Kerbal, it's good enough. I actually invented tooling to make complicated geometric shapes in Kerbal, like that. That just looks like a row of tiles, right? Just looks like a row of triangles. All right, you have a row of triangles here. Why didn't you just use regular panels for it? Why didn't you use square panels? It's helical. Look at it from this angle. The tiles tilt over time. I built tooling in the VAB, or in the SPH, in KSP, to be able to create that subtle curve right there. We have panels in all the right spots for where the thermal protection system is. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have anything that kind of mimics RCC, but we don't need RCC wings because there's no hypersonic shock cones in KSP because non-fluid dynamic simulation. Buenos tardes, Kaku. No hay más stream de City Skylines. Nah, quiero juego Kerbal, amigo. Hoy. Pero buenas tardes, ¿cómo estás? So, yeah, I mean, Arsenal, this is about as hardcore as I can go. I mean, it's designed. I put grip pads back here on the ends of the ohms pods, and there's actually flags back here too, and those are designed to create drag off the back of the shuttle. They're designed to create. I basically have this induced I have a lot of induced drag off the back of this thing, and that's entirely on purpose because I want the thing to fly like trash. I actually made the thing fly worse. Your Spanish sounds like Hugh Grant from The Gentleman. Thank you. Yeah, I actually made it fly worse. Yeah, this thing is not... It's supposed to basically fall like a brick once you get below 10,000 meters. Or about 30,000 feet. ¿Qué bien hablas el español? Ah, gracias. Flies like trash in flyout too. I mean, it's supposed to, right? Like NASA didn't, like Rocket Guy, this is what I try to tell people. NASA didn't build the shuttle and then test it and said, oh, it flies like dog crap. Wow, that's weird. No, they built it like that on purpose. And Rocket Guy, I know you know this, but the shuttle was designed to fly at Mach 10, not Mach 0.5. That's where it's supposed to fly. That's where it flies really well. It flies great at Mach 10. It does not fly great at Mach 0.5. Yo, Jersey, what's good, man? Yeah. That's correct, Drummer. Yeah, that's what he said. Take old girl out for a quick spin. Well, I only brought this up because I wanted to show you stuff. But I told Kix and I'd explain hot staging. So, okay. Kix, you're wondering about hot staging and how it works. So, hot staging. Let's just Google that phrase. I'm just kind of curious. See if we can get a good picture. All right. The hot staging ring on Starship. This thing. How the heck does not... How the heck doesn't that melt? Well, a couple of different things. So Kix, think about it like this, all right? I have a plate of steel, right? Just, let's say I have a, half-inch thick plate of steel, right? And I have a, let's say a World War II flamethrower, right? Bear with me here. Say we had a World War, just a flamethrower. Something that can move a lot of heat really, really quickly, like a rocket engine. If I go for like 2 seconds, is that going to melt that plate? No. It'll burn it up a little bit. You might ablate some of it, but you're not fluxing enough heat into that thing fast enough for it to reach critical mass and melt, right? I think I said that right. You're not putting enough heat into it. Long story short, the hot staging ring acts like a gigantic heat sink. The stainless steel can straight up absorb the heat. This is why stainless steel is used for cookware a lot. It can take the heat. I mean, if you sat there and just kept firing the 6 Raptor engines on Starship into this thing, oh yeah, it'll melt. Absolutely. Right? Right? It'll absolutely do that. I'm interested in where you got all the steel, and the ATF is interested where you got the Flammenwerfer. eBay. So, long story short, dude, you're not putting a lot of heat into this thing. It's only for a second. It's only for a second, right? Now, okay, so what's the other problem you have to deal with? Pressure, right? If there was no reliefs in this hot staging ring, right, the grid, these holes that are cut in the side, pressure could build up in here, and that would increase the heat. Absolutely. But it's only you're giving a way for the pressure to get out. You're getting a way for the rocket exhaust to go away. Basically, it's a flame deflector. Flame deflectors will just push most of the pressure out. And you're not fluxing a lot of heat into this thing, right? Because it's only for a second. The hot staging only happens for a second. The other thing to take into account, right? So the rocket engines are basically pointed at this thing and they fire and then they separate. But, there's still the pulling away. It's still going to move heat into this. But you got to remember, this staging is at altitude. Ambient pressure is extremely low. It's very, very hard to have thermal transfer through convection at high altitude. Not happening. So, because it's lower pressure, and because the rocket engines are only firing at for a second, it doesn't convect a lot of heat. This thing doesn't get as messed up as you might think. I mean, Arsenal, we could make one out of an oxyacetylene torch, but I'm pretty sure that would piss people off, and I definitely wouldn't do it on stream. Not that I need a flamethrower, but it would be cool to have. So, long story short, you're not firing on this thing. Your rocket engine isn't firing on this thing for very long, so that's not a lot of heat going into it. The ambient pressure makes it hard to convect heat because you're way up there. You're almost in the vacuum during staging, right? And as long as you give the pressure, as long as you give relief for pressure right here, you're fine. See, if if this was solid, right, then you'd have a problem because pressure could build up, and then you'll damage it with pressure and not heat. I was on a bus in DC once, and a lady pulled out a lighter and some aerosol to threaten some guy. I missed that city. Oh, gosh. Won't know if the first stage survives the pressure until it lands the first time and can be inspected. I'd be more worried about the pressure damaging the top of the rocket. Well, like I said, as long as you give a relief, you're good to go. And there's no way... See, here's the thing. Your flow rate on a rocket engine is something that's calculated, right? You could do the math out to figure out how big of an opening you need here. You need to make sure your bladder doesn't catch on fire. Well, I mean, eat less Taco Bell or something. I don't know. Or Chipotle. So, it's easy. It's kind of pretty straightforward to quantify something like this. How much gas does the rocket engine shoot out? Well, that's easy. Mass flow rate. You need that to figure out how to make the rocket engine work. If you figure the mass flow rate of 6 engines at a certain throttle, you can figure out how many CFMs are going to get introduced down here. You can figure out your cubic feet per minute, right? I doubt they're using CFM. It's just what I know, all right? You could use cubic meters a minute too if we wanted to do that. Like, I mean, most stuff is engineered in metric anyway, right? So, with that being said, you could figure out how much of a hole you need, right? How big enough of an opening you need to flow that amount of gas, right? That's pretty straightforward stuff. And since you're in the vacuum, it's actually it probably makes that calculation even simpler. You would still have some pressure. There's no way to completely remove it, but much smarter minds than mine are working. Well, SVO, the other part is, once again, your ambient pressure is extremely low. You're in the vacuum. Gases can spread out a lot easier up there. That's why, like, here, hold on. Here, we can look at the hot staging footage. Also, we got Axiom soon. We got to get that done. If we look at the footage of the hot staging right here. Okay. Oh, we look at footage of the hot staging here. Look at how far the gases move out. They move out really quick. There's nothing to hold that pressure in there because you're in the vacuum for the most part. So don't get me wrong. It absolutely is a thing that you have to take into account here, obviously, because you're firing rocket engines at metal. But the medium in which you're doing it makes it hard to convect heat. That's why, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the hot staging ring probably ablated a little bit, if I had to guess. Maybe a little. Probably a negligible amount. It probably burned some of that steel off, but not as much as you might think. See, look at... Alright, so Starship is 350 feet tall. Look at how much these flames are propagating out from the hot staging. You can see them shooting out the vents right there. Yeah, drummer, there you go. But EJ, why don't they put stadium seats next to launch pads? Because they don't want people to die. So, actually, this flow phenomenon that we're seeing here is the second stage plume interacting with the first stage plume. That's kind of what we're seeing. That's why it's doing that. But see, it's only for a second, even after separation. See what I'm talking about? Now, right here, that probably is burning something off. But I think that flow right there is the grid fin. Is the engine exhaust going through the grid fin. Which shouldn't be an issue. You know, it's... Yeah, oh man, that's wild. That's so crazy, dude. It's insane that we even saw this happen. We're going to hopefully see it again in February. But, jeepers creepers. You've got to be kidding me. It's wild, man. Dude, that's nuts. You can reuse it as many times as you want if you don't heat it to a critical mass, right? There's only so much heat that something can absorb before it'll start to ablate or melt, right? There's only so much. As long as you never get near that critical mass, you're good to go. It'll just cool off. It might warp the metal a little bit, but it is stainless. Stainless is really good for... It's really good for being able to take a lot of heat. Once again, this is why a lot of cookware is stainless steel. That and for, you know, you don't want rust in your food, but that's another story. Oh man, if that one little guy actually ignited, we'd be good to go. Unbelievable. Yeah. Oh well. Dude, I'm telling you, this shot right here, this next one, that I get real shuttle vibes from that. Real hardcore space shuttle vibes from this thing. Not a fan of cast iron. I never said that. I think you're just using this as an excuse to talk about cookware. Cast iron is good. Depends on what you're doing, man. Wok, cast iron, stainless. Depends. Coated, non-coated. What are you trying to cook? We have to cook, Jesse. That it worked as well as it did on the first is amazing to me. Like I said, Xerax, this is not as hard to... It's not as hard to quantify this as you might think. What makes this easier to figure out is the fact that you're in very low pressure up here. You're basically in the vacuum at staging. The whole objective is the first stage is to get out of the atmosphere, right? Real strong space shuttle vibes there. That's amazing, dude. I hope this thing works. But yeah, that's hot staging. Should be fine. I wouldn't be surprised if they put more like thermal protection here in the future, because SpaceX seems to do like, you got to start somewhere, so build it and then figure out what you need to fix, right? You know, do some calculations on it, obviously, but build something, get it working, and then, because it's easier to point out what needs to be fixed than it is to figure out what you need to do from the start. That's SpaceX's whole design philosophy. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more thermal types, like a different type of, not necessarily the outside of the hot staging ring, but this interior piece right here. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something a little different. But even, like I said, SpaceX is not the first one to do hot staging.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Titan did the Titan family of rockets was a hot staging rocket. They had a blowout ring in the forward skirt on purpose, and then Soyuz obviously has their thrust inner stage here between the second and third stage, because they do the same thing. I mean, Soyuz isn't reusing stuff per se, but actually, check this out, fellas. So here, I'll show you something real quick. I think so, Joe. Hey, sup? What's up, sup? 23 months. If we go to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, it's no longer there. They moved it to Kennedy, believe it or not. But see, here's the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. You could tell it's a rocket museum because of the way it is. If we go over here, where are ya? Where are ya? Where are ya, bud? There. No, not that one. Hold on. That is a Titan, but that's a Titan II missile. Where is it? 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 Where are you? It's around here somewhere. Maybe they updated these pictures, but yeah, I don't see it. There is some aft skirts for a Saturn V sitting right there, by the way. B-1A cockpit right there, Saturn 1B fairing. I don't know what that is. That's some type of Saturn V inner stage. Could be an inner stage or an inner tank. I'm guessing it's an inner tank because of the black stripes. There's some redstone stuff right there. They had a Titan first stage like this, but it's just one of the tanks from a Titan right here. It used to be out here, but they must have updated the pictures, unless I'm completely missing it. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to point that out, that booster is at the U.S. Air Force Museum in Cape Canaveral. And the reason why it's in a museum, the reason why that booster is in a museum is because it's flown. It's been flown. Give me a second. Yeah, here we go. Check this out. The reason why that booster is there, it's just the tank, is because it's flown before. They actually recovered it. This is from the Gemini 5 mission. NASA went out and fished what was left of the first stage out because part of it landed and it floated. For whatever reason. So, the interesting thing about that is that, like I said, that booster is flown. Now, so we know Titan hot stages, right? We know that that's a thing. Let's take a look at this picture. A rocket engine was firing at the top of this. See the blowout panels on the forward skirt? Same idea. They had inserts here that blow out, you know, when it fires. It's not like just an open grid like Starship. But look at that thing. That thing's flown. Had a rocket engine fire at it. It's just steel. Maybe with some paint on it or something. Looks fine to me. The United like, take a look. Looks all right to me. I mean, the tank is super dented. That's because it hit the water going really fast, and who knows how it's been handled over the years, right? Like, I'm looking for scorch marks. Do you guys see any scorch marks here? Maybe a little bit. Like, see, there's a little bit right there, but I don't even know if that's paint or whatever. Like, maybe they painted this to, you know, I don't know if that's how the boosters came. If it did, it looks like the LR91 scuffed some paint off, but that's about it. See what I mean? Like, that thing is, it's okay. It seems all right to me. I mean, it's very, oh. Yeah, it's the same picture. See, like, that's a pretty good example, right? That's a recovered hot stage booster. Yeah, Rock Guy, I don't think that hot staging is going to be as big of a problem as people make it out to be. Do I think that SpaceX will eventually put some type of thermal protection system or some type of small TPS or something up there? Yeah, sure, probably. If they're gonna, I mean, if they're gonna fire this thing a lot, yeah, maybe. But then again, with the stainless, you might not have to. Yeah, maybe, Aqualex. I mean, who knows? Well, you know, I don't think hot staging is an issue, personally. But anyway, the KSP project that I want to tackle is I want to figure out an integral booster design here. That's what I want to figure out. This is a problem. This is a problem that I really been kind of wondering about for a long time. Now, just put Starship tiles on there. Yeah, sure, 5-head. What about your Vulcan build? I mean, the Vulcan build's there. It exists. It's pretty good. Pretty good little booster design here. We got most of it figured out. I gotta, ooh, oof, oofta. We have to Move those in a little bit. Yeah, has to be like that, man. Yeah, I got most of it figured out. The back piece looks really good, but I kind of wanted to work more on an integrated architecture. You rolled a 12, Wolf? Okay, add time. 12, 17. Get fricked, nerd. So, this is a cool project. I do like it. Maybe we'll mess with it in a little bit, but don't save. Absolutely not. Yeah, I'll replace the engine some other time. But I think a good project to tackle would be to figure out how to do a booster, an integral structural booster design. What's the mission today? I don't know. So, there's the Jebstone booster. We could start with this, right? And then I would love to work a design. Yeah, Jebstone is freaking workhorse, man. It's one of the best rockets we've ever engineered. Jebstone 4 revision 1. Oh, that's Jebstone 6. No, you don't want that one. We don't want that one. Good idea, but yes, that is what you think it is, but you don't want that one. you don't want that one. Trust me on this one. It's not a cargo shuttle primer. That's the first stage. Yeah, that's Jebstone 6. And then there's Jebstone 3, which, if you've watched me play KSP 2, you might be familiar with it. The flyback first stage kind of works. Anyway, yeah, so what is a structurally integral booster design? So, with something like Vulcan, all right? With something like Vulcan, Vulcan is capable of being integrated with no boosters or with up to 6, right? The thing can stand basically on its own with no boosters. Now, that's cool. The boosters that go on Vulcan are attachable SRMs, right? They're solid rocket motors, right? GM63XLs. And when VC6 flies, man, that thing's gonna go. That's gonna be awesome. The variant that we saw in Vulcan's first flight with the Peregrine lander was VC2 configuration, which is, yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. No big deal. VC2. Now, the boosters aren't structurally integral to the design, right? It could launch with no boosters if you really wanted to, but the inaugural configuration was a VC2. You could launch it with no boosters. You just have the 2 main engines, right? The 2 BE4s. Or you could have up to 6. That is not structurally integral. Those are attachable, a strap-on SRM right there. That's what they're called. Attachable solid rocket motors. Right? Now, that's non-integral. Atlas V uses non-integral. So does Delta, or Delta 4 medium 5. Delta 5-4 medium plus used SRBs at one point, but that variant no longer flies. In fact, not many. There's like 2 Delta 4 heavies left or something, which kind of sucks for it. But hey, what are you going to do? We got Vulcan. Vulcan's pretty good. So, like, you know, you compare that to Falcon. Falcon has no attachable SRMs, right? And you have the Falcon Heavy variant, which is just 3 Falcon 9s instead of attachable boosters. Now, if you compare that to the Space Shuttle, I don't know why the H got capitalized. If you compare that to the Space Shuttle, right? Let's just find a picture of a stacked Space Shuttle. This will work. This old Smithsonian diagram. So if you look at the shuttle, right? The shuttle absolutely needs its solid rocket boosters. It absolutely needs them. Those are technically, the two twin boosters are technically the first stage, right? So the shuttle is a 1.5 STO. It's 1.5 stages to orbit. The reason why it's a 1.5 STO is because you generally don't really have a second stage here. The shuttle engines are firing right at ignition. So the shuttle engines basically work like a sustainer engine for the most part. Like if you guys are familiar with SM-65 with Atlases, that's basically a sustainer engine. Atlas had jettisonable engines too. They were jettisonable liquid fuel engines though. So I don't know why that don't. So if you look, right, at an SM-60, well, of course the image that I chose is potato, but see these two engines right here? Those two engines actually, and the thrust structure surrounding them, actually jettison. Atlas didn't actually have an upper stage. The missile variant didn't have an upper stage. It actually jettisoned the outer engines. There's a really nice diagram for this thing somewhere around here. There we go. See? The two engines and the thrust structure surrounding them would jettison, and then you'd have a center engine with a hybrid optimized nozzle. That's what that is right there. That would basically work as your upper stage, dumping the engines off the back. R68 should have been used on SLS. You always like the addition of the trim tabs. Yeah, so I would contend to say that this is not that far off from what the Space Shuttle actually does. Space Shuttle jettisons the engines. The solid rocket boosters are an engine. It jettisons the engine, and then you have a middle sustainer engine that's on the back of the orbiter attached to, with fuel lines attached to the external tank, right? But the point that I'm trying to get at is that these are integral boosters. You're not getting anywhere without them, right? You're not getting anywhere. This is your first stage.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Technically, it's your first stage. So, how does the shuttle bolt to the pad then? Like, how does it attach to the pad? The shuttle requires, you need the SRBs. Shuttle, you can't build a shuttle stack like Vulcan without them. Let me just go through my private collection of pictures. There's the external tank attachment point. The boosters are structurally integral to the design. The only thing that's physically holding the shuttle to the pad, or that held the shuttle to the pad, is 4 bolts on each booster. That's it. Right? Oh, hell yeah. I forgot about that. Hey, human, 51 months. Milo, how you doing? So, the shuttle actually isn't physically bolted to the pad. It has fuel lines attached to it, but fuel lines are not structural. If they are, then you probably did something wrong. So, the shuttle needs the boosters to stand up. In fact, when you'd go to stack the space shuttle, like when they go to do it, I have a picture in here somewhere to illustrate this exact thing, just amongst all my really nice shuttle pictures. This is my private collection of pictures. These are just pictures that I found on the internet that I thought looked cool. You stack the SRBs first, and then you hang the external tank on your SRBs. You gotta love when EJ stops everything to zoom in on a Chevy truck. That ain't no Chevy. That ain't no Chevy. It's a Ford. That's a damn Ford. Nice fur. So, what am I getting at here? Why am I telling you this? So SLS is the same way. SLS is the SRBs are holding SLS up. The core stage actually isn't physically bolted to the pad, to the MLs. So why bring this up? I want to try to build this in Kerbal. A design challenge. Not necessarily, we won't necessarily have a shuttle, right? But a design challenge that I always thought was interesting was trying to make a structurally integral SRB design in KSP. There's the locks down comer. How'd that sneak in there? Those are not external tank parts, but I digest. So, I would like to see if we can try to do that. That's one of the projects that I never got around to in KSP 1 before KSP 2 came out. But since we can't do something like that in KSP 2 right now, I would like to attempt it. What are the aerospike looking things on the ground next to the truck? That's a parking cone on top of a drainage. On top of drainage manholes. The parking cones are on top of it so you don't drive over it. Yeah, that's a drainage system. Those are the storm drains for the most part. If you want to be absolutely sure, I can show you where they go. I remember you originally thought you had to attach the ET first. Well, I want to do kind of what would be called in the aerospace industry. I'd like to do a trade study to try and see if we can get this done. Yeah, absolutely drainage. Let's see, where does it go? Right there, into the culvert. See? It's a storm drain. He's gonna find a ford in this somehow. I mean, I wasn't, but now that you said something, that's a ford right there. Nice F-150. That's an old one. That's like mine. I mean, I only did it because you said. I wasn't really trying to do that, but actually, that's a nice truck. It looks like a 95 or a 96. The fact that we can actually see this on a satellite and make that out is actually pretty cool. It's a 95 or 96 F-150, if I had to guess. Nice. Get away from your car. It's not a car, it's a truck. A Miata in the front? I bet you can't find an F-150 or similar in Denmark. Yeah, you're not worthy of awesome trucks like that. That looks like a Mustang, Tessa. That looks like an old Mustang. It's not a truck, that's my lunch. What? So, chap lips, dudes. I would like to try and see if we can do a structurally integral SRB. Thank you, Mr. Space Strimmer Man. I knew they weren't aerospikes, but they caught my eye. Yeah, it's just a parking cone on top of a drainage ditch. So, one of the big problems is trying to hang an external tank on these things. That's an issue. But did we discuss the result of the hearing yesterday? Yeah, I did that for like 10 hours yesterday, Pop. Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I'm all right. So this does propose a challenge. I think it would be nice to start with Jebstone, right? It'd be nice to start with this thing. So an Ares style architecture. And kind of go from there. So one thing that I'm really like about is did you edit the gimbal range on this SRB? No. I saw a document about a hypothetical Mars architecture. I would post the diagram, but I don't think that's a good idea right now. Hang on one second. Alex posted the architecture. You talking about this one? I don't necessarily think this is a bad idea. The interesting thing is that it's not very popular. Space Twitter and the spaceflight community wasn't really a fan of what Mike Griffin had to say yesterday, which is interesting to me. I think the guy's a freaking genius. No, it's the one where they suggest building a transfer vehicle in cislunar. Oh. I never understood. Why would you do that? That makes no sense. Transfer vehicles, I firmly believe that transfer vehicles really should be built in low Earth orbit. Space Order gets pissed off whenever architecture doesn't include Starship. Yeah. Yeah. What are you gonna do? Just build a teleportation platform. No, I'm good. Delete Twitter. Nah, good source for spaceflight news, to be honest with you. People are just blind to the bad parts of Starship. Yeah, I mean, dudes, I don't have a problem with Starship. I think Starship's awesome. It's a Saturn V. It's a Saturn V and a space shuttle combined into one vehicle. It's amazing. That's awesome. But I think NASA needs to have its own hardware that's more garden variety space program, and it needs to be redundant to SpaceX's capability. That's the most sustainable way forward. I haven't heard a good argument to the contrary, ever. 10 years of doing this. No one has ever given me an argument why we should just use Starship. Simultaneously, no one's ever given me a good argument why we should just use Artemis. It has to be both. It has to be. You want the most sustainable way forward? That's the most sustainable way forward. Drive the commercial market, but have redundant capabilities. I don't think it's wise to... I don't think it's wise to have NASA, a scientific research organization, which by definition is hell-bent on understanding and exploration, for that type of thing to be beholden to a corporation to get anywhere. You know, I don't think SpaceX, and I'm not trying to say like SpaceX is going to do something nefarious or something. I honestly don't think they ever will. But just because it's SpaceX now doesn't mean that it won't be somebody else that does. Making NASA beholden to commercial contractors for human space exploration, I think, is a really bad idea. And I'm saying that as a huge Starship fan. I want Starship to exist, And I want NASA to have a robust lunar architecture and Martian architecture that's redundant to SpaceX's capability. That'll make the program more sustainable. You have to. You have to have parity. So in that regard, I'm a gigantic SLS nerd and also a gigantic Starship nerd. I want both of those things. I don't understand why people struggle with this one a lot, and it seems to be some diametrically opposed thing. Like you're either commercial or you're not, or you're either like SLS or you don't. SLS has its flaws, so does Starship. I want both of those things to succeed. It's in my best interest as a spaceflight nutcase for both of those to succeed. Why would I cheer the demise of one or the other? That's ridiculous and frankly counterintuitive. No, you're a gigantic spaceflight nerd. Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. So, when Mike Griffin came in yesterday and said that, we need our own in-house way to get to the moon, and he's been frankly saying that in his own words for the past 30 years, I agree with him. I think that's right. NASA needs their own way to get to the moon that does not have commercial contractor operations in the loop. I'm sorry. You have to. I think that is a huge national security risk, making NASA a scientific research organization beholden to corporations. I don't think that's a good idea. What if some crazy commercial contractor comes along that's not SpaceX, grabs more market share than SpaceX, and the guy that runs it is a climate denier? Then what? That puts a price on our scientific understanding of Earth observation and planetary research, and I don't think that's smart. I don't think that's a good idea at all. Now, I'm not saying that every single NASA payload needs to be launched on an in-house NASA vehicle. The science stuff, you could just go to another provider if you don't want to launch on that one, right? Like, you could go with ULA, or you could go with SpaceX, you could go with, I was about to say Northrop Grumman, but you get the idea, right? You could even go to our European friends with Ariane 6 whenever that happens, right? But for missions that are human exploration, I think that's an extraordinarily bad idea. I don't want a corporation and a corporation's goals interfering with NASA's goals. And I'm not saying that SpaceX will. I don't think they will. I'm pretty sure they won't. But going on the honor system and not getting something codified like that into law right now could come back to bite us in the future. Not very sustainable. Gorkon, in this universe, dude, in this timeline, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, Jordis, that's a good way of explaining it. But anyway. Yeah. You need a robust architecture that gets you all the way to the moon. A big bottleneck remains with SLS production, too. Handicaps from NASA being able to potentially fledge out a better architecture if they could allocate more SLS launches to actual landers and more expeditions. Rocket Guy, someone asked me yesterday, Mason here asked me yesterday, if I was in charge of NASA and it was open season, I could do whatever I want, what would I do? Honestly, I kind of killed me to say it, but I would delay the moon landings, probably even more than what they did the other day, and it would piss people off. I would do that. I think this is my personal opinion. Do I know more than Lockheed? Absolutely not. I'm just calling it like I see it, according to systems engineering operations that I see from NASA, from NASA's own book. How long is the delay? It could be 5 to 10 years, Irish. Because the reality of the situation is that we're, everybody, I see NASA doing this. We saw it on the subcommittee yesterday. They are framing this like we are in a space race with the Chinese to get back to the moon. Well, first of all, you probably shouldn't have left the moon in the first place and you wouldn't have this problem, but that's another story. So, we are in a space race to get back to the moon. We have to get there before the Chinese do because we want to be at the forefront of exploration. It's a national security risk if we're not. Right? I think that's fair. I think that's fair. That's a fair thing to say. But, you know, Mike Griffin said we need to be out there. We need to develop, like, you know, flight rules for landers on the moon, like how we have like air traffic control. We need lunar traffic control. We got to go and figure out how to do stuff like that. So when somebody goes to land on the moon, they're using our rules, not anybody else, which I think is a very smart idea.
Discovery,
that prevents nobody from exploiting the moon for nefarious purposes. I think that's smart because I know we won't do it, right? But we don't know if other people would or wouldn't, right? Magnus, 52 months. So, the goal here with Artemis in that regard is not just go to the moon to figure out how you want to go to Mars. I think the goal from Artemis is to build a city on the moon. We're not racing the Chinese to go back to the moon. Who cares if they get... I mean, I was going to say who cares if they get there first, but... in that regard, if we want to do something like that, what are the Chinese going to land somebody on the moon and they're just going to try for Mars right after that? Hell no. Their space program doesn't know enough. Yet. I think a robust architecture that gets us to the point that by the time the Chinese do send somebody out there, we have a lunar city. And then by the time they're working on getting their moon base up and running or whatever in the decade or 15 years or so, right? We're already focusing on going out to Mars. Yeah, dude, I like what Mike had to say. I think his Centaur 3 architecture for a two Artemis mission is a little ridiculous. I would rather, Rocket Guy, the reason why, you know, so in my idea... So if I was in control of the space program, 3 big things. First one, OTP, the Orion test program. Leverage commercial launch vehicles to get some more flight data on the Orion capsule. Get loitering capability for the Orion capsule figured out from a lot of flight data. Get the docking capability, RPOD operations from Orion figured out. Send it up to the ISS. Send it up to the ISS. And, we're worried about docking port. Dude, build another IDA. Whatever. Is that really going to be that expensive? Build another international docking adapter. That's not going to be expensive at all. That's just an adapter. It's not a space station module, right? Send it up in the trunk of a Dragon. Right? Orion test program. Get the capsule working in low Earth orbit. Loitering capability. Have the capsule free fly in a higher orbit than the ISS for long periods of time. Do missions like Polaris Dawn with the Orion capsule. Okay? I'm talking... And have it launch on Falcon 9. Have it launch on Vulcan. You could have it launch on Falcon 9. You just need to use the SPS to circularize, whatever. You're not going to the moon with it on a Falcon 9, right? That means later down the road, when you go to do Martian architecture, you have a way to get just people up in space, and you don't have to put them on top of a gigantic moon rocket to build a Mars transfer vehicle. Now, with that being said, that brings me to my second thing. Orion test flight program would basically be... use a similar contract framework to commercial orbital transport services, specifically commercial resupply, and it would get Orion missions to the ISS, first uncrewed, basically follow Dragon 2's flight testing regime, and then do high orbit missions with the Orion capsule, basically skirting the magnetic field. Get you good testing data, get you good flight data. Uncrewed capacity, life support systems test for Orion. Loitering, basically, like I said, make sure it can stay out there. docking capability to the space station, long-term docking capability to the space station, park an Orion capsule up there for a year. Use the ISS while we have it for this type of capability. Use it. Right? The second thing, the second part of that program is that SLS, Block 1 is not getting us anywhere. We would need to block buy SLS boosters with the EUS and the Universal Stage Adapter with Orion on top of that. Yep. You know, I'm talking with the Orion test program, maybe 3 or 4 flights on a Falcon 9 over the next 5 years. Not too crazy. Let's say 5 flights, once a year for the Orion capsule over the next 5 years. In parallel, right? In parallel, EUS development needs to be accelerated. Accelerate the EUS and the Universal Stage Adapter and continue with basically in the downtime that you need to retool SLS for scale like that, which will cost a lot of money, along with scaling Orion components. Those two are going to cost a lot for the, scaling for the Orion test program, right? You use the capsules that you would have used for Artemis 2 and Artemis 3. Use them for the Orion testing program. Develop acceptance criteria and make low Earth orbit loiter missions that are basically comparable to Artemis 2 and Artemis 3 style missions. Once those missions are done, 5 missions, 5 years. Simple as that. Launching on a Falcon 9, doing loitering, ISS, park one at the ISS, leave it there for a year, see what happens. That thing needs to be able to be strung onto a vessel on a Martian transfer vehicle, right? Has to be. It has to. Like, you need to get that type of testing data. Can the capsule loiter like that for long periods of time? Sure. So one of the missions would be park one of those Orions up at the ISS and leave it there with another adapter, right? Do more flight tests, test reuse components. 5 flights should be enough to make sure that Orion is good to go for the long term. And
Discovery, go at throttle up.
And then from there, after those 5 flights, work on flexibility for uprating your service module to have the Delta V for Orion into low lunar. Work on that at the same time, right when the Orion test program starts, with a Block 1 version of the capsule basically in its current form. After that, you need to uprate the service module. Service module is, maybe you don't necessarily need to even do that. Simultaneously, while those test missions are going on that are relatively low cost, fixed price missions, leveraging the commercial market, but getting Lockheed the testing data that it needs, and NASA the testing data that it needs for the next however many years we're going to be using the Orion capsule, right? 30 years, right? Simultaneously, you start up a hypergolic 2-stage lander. This is the part I told you about already, Rocket Guy. Hypergolic 2-stage. Basically build LEM 2.0. I understand, people are going, it's not sustainable, EJ. Guess what, man? It's a quick and dirty way to get to the moon. That's the whole point here, right? Remember, we're racing against the Chinese. I personally don't think we are. We're racing to build a city. We're racing the Chinese to get back to the moon, but we're trying to build a sustainable lunar base on the moon. They're just trying to get there. We already beat them 50 years ago. But whatever. I mean, if that's a priority, that's a priority. 2-stage hypergolic lander. Do what works. Do what works, and then have potential scalability studies into making that cryogenic. Yeah, working on a cryogenic system for that, but only after you have some flight data and we've reestablished the fact that we can get somebody to the surface of the moon. If we have an uprated descent module using hypergols, Orion doesn't need to use its surface propulsion system to circularize in low lunar. It can use the descent module to do it, no problem. Build that into the design. Now SLS Block 1B with the Universal Stage Adapter can get to low lunar with Orion in a module in one shot, like the Saturn V. But instead of using the CSM, you use the lander. Because it's a 2-stage, you have an uprated descent module that's an upgraded descent module that's designed for low lunar circularization and then landing. Dump the descent module, ascent module back up. Orion, get you, ascent module rendezvous with Orion, get back. This type of architecture would also be good with Gateway. You can also use Block 1B to build out Gateway, right? And then with your lander, you can move to reusability potential. Just like what the Apollo program wanted to do with the AAP, right? You could reactivate the LSAM program if you really wanted to. Now, while that's all going on, you have your Orion test program. So then by the end of this decade, right, more or less, we have a capsule that we know is not going to be the problem. We got to go test that lander, but we could also leverage Starship HLS and SLD. Those will be ready to go. But once again, NASA needs to have its own systems. Can you imagine if we had LEM 2.0 with Orion and that was working with Starship HLS and with Blue Origin SLD? You want robust lunar architecture, there you go. That is a very, very safe way of getting to the moon because you're building redundancy into the program. There's 3 different types of ways to get to the surface instead of maybe 1, maybe 2 in the future. That's why if I had direct control, the lunar landings would be delayed. They would be delayed a little bit, but they would be delayed by 5 years. But by the time those 5 years are up, we'll have pretty much the most comprehensive and robust lunar architecture since the Apollo program. But it's going to be on steroids because you have Starship HLS. After HLS, contract SpaceX to move modules down to the surface. And then use the 2-stage hypergol just for people. And then maybe switch to SLD from there. Right? But SLD is going to take time to figure out. We need a simpler approach to be able to get to the surface. Anyway. Hey King, what's going on? Twidget with the 37-month resub. Redundant to similar. Terra, yeah. Then from there, SLS needs a 10-meter fairing. The reason why it needs a 10-meter fairing is because you need to start working on transfer vehicles. Now, you can already leverage Falcon 9 or Vulcan to get an Orion into low Earth orbit so it can help build this transfer vehicle that you'll launch uncrewed components on a cargo version of SLS with no upper stage. If we're going to assemble a gigantic transfer vehicle like the Copernicus in space, they're going to each module is going to have its own RCS and have RPOD capability because the modules are going to need to dock to each other. So build in enough RCS on your transfer vehicle to be able to launch on SLS with just a core stage and a fairing, and then be able to have it circularize itself. Once again, you're building around SLS capability here. And then Orion can get up to it, so we can get people to it, or you could use Dragon to get to it in the meantime, whatever. Or Starliner if that ever goes, right? You could do commercial resupply to outfit the transfer vehicle and have the transfer vehicle basically loitering around in low Earth orbit like the ISS for a little while until a transfer window comes around. Have it there for a year. 26 months for a transfer window. And then people get off of it and then send the thing on a Martian flyby. Basically put it into a cycler. 26 months goes by, the thing comes back. All the while you're doing lunar missions, putting people down on the base, sustainable lunar development, HLS on the moon, right? By the time that transfer vehicle comes back, you check the vehicle after the flyby, you outfit it, and using SLD, you refuel it. By the time that transfer vehicle comes back 26 months later, SLD, this would be in like 2035, 2036. Hopefully this Sustainable Lunar Development Program has perfected Hydrolox refueling, and SpaceX has perfected Methalox refueling at this point. So you just refuel the transfer vehicle. Easy peasy. That's what I do. I think it's a good idea. And I believe it or not, I think we should do it in KSP. But anyway. that would delay our lunar landings by 5 years, but in the 5 years after that, it would be a renaissance for lunar exploration. And that's leveraging Starship and SLD on top of NASA's in-house landing solutions. I mean, you want to build a lunar city? That's how you build a lunar city. Now, don't get me wrong. This would be expensive. NASA would probably need, if I had to guess off the top of my head, NASA would need about a 20 to 30% budget increase for the Human Exploration Operations Mission Directorate and Exploration Systems Development would need, I don't know, 20 to 30% boost. You would need modifications to the contract for Orion and SLS to be able to scale. But the Orion test program would need 5 more capsules. I would say at the very least 5 more capsules. And that would cost a lot of money initially, but your investment here would be good because now you can mass produce Orion capsules. Because when we start going out to the moon, the way I'm doing it, when we start going out to the moon by 2029, 2030, you can support with SLS and Orion, you can support a 4 launch a year launch cadence from like 2030 to 2035. That's 20 lunar missions in 5 years. That's what NASA needs. That's what you need. You need architecture like that. This 1 flight a year bullcrap launch cadence, maybe launch next year. That is the opposite of a sustainable space flight. It's the opposite of that. Yeah, Jordis, what RJ linked is correct. I said bullcrap, Tara. It's fine. You don't know the rules better than me. Go away. Roasted. How's the new job, dude? Everything good? So yeah, I mean this would work with the my idea would work with the boondoggle system, and at the worst case scenario, SpaceX beats you there. So what? That's a win. That's absolutely a win. And nobody convinced me that it's more sustainable to have less ways to get to the moon. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Well, it's not, but it's close. Anyway, so Jebstone, we need to figure this one out here. I need to figure out how we're going to do this. And I think where we're really running into some trouble here, or we're really going to run into some trouble, is the straight mass. I can't stack SRBs in segments. How NASA does it is that they stack this piece first, and then that piece, and then that piece, and then that piece. See what I'm talking about? That's not going to work for us. It's not going to work very well. Let me put it to you like that. Because we have to move a fully fueled solid rocket booster around. So we're going to need to devise a system that can move and integrate a booster that's 144 tons, give or take, with an interstage on top of it, at least at first. Yeah, I don't know how we're going to do that. Would it be wise to develop how you refuel the SRB? Then you can possibly do it on a pad. I'm not sure from like a lore standpoint, RJ, that I'm okay with that. You know, that would be weird. Okay, now we're fueling up our SRB. I mean, you can do it. We can fuel SRBs outside of the VAB. We proved that it can be done. What about that gantry crane you built? I'm not necessarily sure, Midget, that it's rated for this type of load. Yeah, hybrid tech should be able to solve that problem, I think. It's just really building out the crane. You could transfer solid fuel? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have that craft file in here, but... Yeah, RJ, I don't... That's a good idea. I hate it from, like, a lore standpoint, because the whole point of this is to teach, right? But then again, the way we integrate SRBs is not at all how they do it in real life, because we're limited in KSP. Oh boy. Yikes. Anyway, you're just thinking of a starting point. Yep. What is that? It's a trailer with an upper stage attached to it. So, long story short, all systems, if you set a cal controller to have negative thrust and then play negative thrust on an SRB, the SRB will make negative thrust and it'll generate fuel instead of using fuel. You just got to attach it on a stand and reload it. Yeah, I can make an SRB reloading station. We figured that one out. Is that for Condor? I forget what that one is for, dude, to be honest with you. That's just a crane truck using an SRB as an integral piece. It's a telescoping crane. Let's check something. While this is loading up, I'm just going to use the restroom real quick, guys. I just got to go take a leak. I'll be back in a moment. But yeah, I think developing better crane architecture, no matter what we do, is a good idea. I mean, once again, we could build out Vulcan. It's not a big deal. But I think it would be really cool to build out the shuttle. That would be really sick. Build out the shuttle or an SLS style lifter. Anyway, I'll be right back. I'm just going to take a leak real quick. All right, let's see what this thing does. All right. So we have our crane jacks here. Let's see what happens here. All right, let's see. Can we auto strut those? Do like heaviest part? Because they're locked out? And if we do, can we... Yeah. Okay. Hi, Ball DJ. How are you doing today? I'm fine, man. I'm just fine. Okay. You dig the short hair look? Thank you. Yeah, it's nice. It's just a little cold, but that's okay. All right, so okay. Yeah, that thing is bending a little bit. Oh, hi, Mark. Huh. Oh, what the heck was I doing here? Man, we were cooking with this design. Oh. Huh. Hey, Bob, what's going on, buddy? How are you? Huh. What the frick? Man, I was cooking with this thing. Look at this frickin' thing. How far does that actually extend? I don't necessarily remember making this. Jeepers. Man. Wow. Like I said, we were cooking with this thing. Look at this freaking thing.
Discovery.
Those are 4x symmetry telescoping hydraulics. Except out to the end where it's a single. I don't remember making this thing, to be honest with you. I don't remember making this particular one. I remember working on this, but jeepers. This thing's actually freaking cool, man. So we're at full extension there. Look at that. Oh yeah, we're putting a lot of stress on the pin though. Huh. The ore tanks are used as my counterweight, yeah. Huh. Yeah, see, that's running full counterweight, man. Even with full counterweight, we're still... Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, Zarek, this is just a past design. I think we really need to start with lifting things up. The key to making, believe it or not, okay, so when you're trying to play Kerbal this way, i.e. using cranes and integration equipment to build stuff outside of the VAB, the key here is having good hoisting equipment, building good bridge cranes, building, like, that's something that you need to get precise. That's not an easy thing to do in KSP. That's why I kind of just, what I started with here is just loading up a crane that I had lying around. This is a pretty good telescoping crane. It's not necessarily, it's not bad, dude. It's pretty cool. What I just did was a no-no in crane design. That's known as a big no-no. Yeah. Yeah, see? That's a big no-no. Everything is fine. See, they're happy. Oh, no. All right, cool. That was a cool little crane. That wasn't bad. Sky Crane wouldn't have that flaw. Sky Crane would have crashed already, let's be real. Easy oil changes, yeah. So, do I have any integration cranes from the original mission mode loaded up here? I don't think that I do. Huh. Nope. We don't. Just wanted to check, is the Axiom flight still on target for today? Yeah, we'll begin coverage in about 2 hours, Reap. Okay. Alright. Okay. In the meantime, dudes, I'm gonna mess with this, okay? We're gonna mess with this. I need, before I go and try to build something precise, I need to make sure that I can, like I said, like what we were doing with Vulcan. I gotta get my hands dirty here, okay? So let me go over here and get another version of this so we could build a heavier crane. And I will start with that here. Yeah, the Tunguska. The Tunguska uses my extended truck chassis here. I want to start with this thing, but I want to redo basically the entire crane part of this. I want to redo the whole crane part of this. We can do that by redoing the pin. Why cranes look ugly? Yes? Awesome, looking forward to the coverage. Cool. Huh. Yeah, I see how I set this up. Okay. I'm thinking. I think this is a good exercise to get the precision work that I have figured out. I'm just thinking about how I'm going to do it. This was a this was a hybrid tech prototype. Are we building cranes for a reason or just for fun? I need to figure out how to engineer precision hoisting equipment jack. If we don't figure that out, it's going to be a little bit difficult to try and build and integrate stuff. That makes sense, dude. I think if I can build yeah, I think we might be able to build something nice like this. I'm thinking. Just give me a second, fellas. I mean, I want to work on this, but I'm not necessarily sure that working on this is going to help us. But the flip side of that is that I don't want to go and engineer out an integration crane and have the crane not be my best work. But maybe we could do iterative prototyping with said type of crane. I'm thinking. Give me a second. I think, you know what? Give me the telescoping crane. We won't use the K400 chassis. We don't want that. Your droids. We don't want them here. We need. There's the K200. That's just the truck. Just the truck chassis. Recovery pallet. Dude. Oh yeah, look at this thing. I remember this. You guys seen this thing? Selling that Sparko steering wheel. You guys ever see what this thing's supposed to do? Watch this. I don't think it's necessarily designed to pick up capsules. I think it's designed to pick up debris, to be honest with you. But this was a little mini crane that I made. I used this as a prototype for hybrid tech. Hey, I'm just messing with KSP, just relearning. I gotta relearn how to do all this.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Yeah, this has got a little picker on it, so you can... Ah, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we had to be worried because that could happen, I remember now. Yeah, the crane, it could accidentally stow itself like that. You could get some disgustingly bad gimbal lock with this thing. Like what just happened. Ah, it bound up. But that's the crane in the stowed position. It was tough for this thing to unstow itself. Because that hydraulic binds. If I extended it, it's just going to break it. Yeah. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, see, we popped the joint out. Damn. But yeah, it's a little recovery truck. You could pick stuff up and put it on the back of the truck, which is cool. So there's that one, and then there's the telescoping crane that I worked on with this. Where's our telescope? That's the one we were just messing with. This thing's actually pretty cool. With some hybrid tech, this thing could work really, really nice. But I'm thinking about kind of how this is all going to go together. Do we have same vessel interaction on that? Yeah, we do. We do not have hybrid tech bearings on this thing, though. Here. That's essentially what we're making. That guy. Little guy like, or something like this. Just kind of wondering, where's the pivot point? Ah, yeah, the pivot point is on the back of that thing. Yeah, Pandarific, I could put a piece in there, a detent piece in there to make it, you know. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, little guy. Yeah, man. These are little guy. That's a big telescoping crane. That's a big one. These little three-wheeled, three-axle guys, those are tiny. That's a little baby crane. But then again, that's maybe we should do that. Maybe we should build a little babby like this to start off. You know, that's probably not a bad idea. Let me think. Did you ever get that Lego kit? No. Those guys are a touch bigger than what you use for houses. Yeah. The Lever 11,000 crane. Actually, a viewer that watches the stream a lot. I think Facha said he got one for Christmas, which is cool. Yeah, that's pretty rad. How did it freaking know? Yeah, see, that's the crane that I was just showing you guys. That's cool, man. You know what? Well, actually, I mean, we could use this. This is fine. We got to come up with a... So this thing, the problem is that the pin really likes to move around. The pin is the pivot point on the crane. That really likes to move. I don't want that. How much are those as surplus? I don't know. 10 grand? Maybe less? I mean, dude, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that wouldn't be useful. Give me a second, fellas. What type of absolute AIDS behavior is that? Let's think. Let's think. All right, telescoping crane number 2. How did I end up making this thing? That's crane rotation. Okay, that's fair. Okay, 180. Wait. Oh, 60 is, yeah, okay. Degrees of rotation is not the same. So, boom, that's boom angle. Boom rotation control debug. Cable length. Okay, I see what I was doing. And I also had struts in here for some reason. I put struts in the inventory cans. Not entirely sure why I did that, but we'll figure that one out. All right. I just want to see how I made the telescoping part. That's boom length. Crane rotation. Yeah, boom length is what I want. Let's... What did I do here? Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. That's pretty disgusting behavior, if you ask me. Okay, I see what I did here. They're in 4 times symmetry. Oh. Eek. That's not a good way to do that at all. Yikes. I was playing KSP 2 yesterday and expanding your first station. I was wondering, do you know or caught any wind of any welding part? Replacement or otherwise Kerbal being able to do stuff for EVA and KSP 2? Never heard of nothing like that. I don't think that's in their scope. Oof. Sorry about that, fellas. Yeah, it's making it a little difficult to focus. Thanks, mods. Appreciate it, dudes. Okay. How are we going to do this? I need to look at... I mean, there's the Hemet crane, and that's all fine and dandy. That thing is cool. Okay, I'm not really liking the way I did this. This thing is very susceptible to bending. Just because of how I put it together. You have lynch points here between all the different hydraulics, right there, right there, and then again right here. So the thing, the boom can deflect. You don't want that with a crane. That has to be really strong. I can't again hope the bots aren't daily now. Yeah, that would really suck, man. Have you seen the game War Hospital, and would it be something? I haven't seen it. I don't know what it's about. Does making something a subpart, I forget exactly what it is called, but does making something one of those force the game to treat that subpart act like one whole part? No. Unless you get a part welder flagged. No. Focus on the hospital aspect of something like Hearts of Iron. Guys, for the people that are unfamiliar with how I play Kerbal, sometimes you got to sit here and you got to think about exactly what you want to do. Kerbal's a tough game to play. It's just like when I go slow in Hearts of Iron, or, I mean, in Cities, it kind of comes a little bit easier. Comes a little bit easier to be able to do stuff like this. But, yeah, we gotta... Oh, that whole thing is one piece, huh? That's a weird way to do that. Okay. Oh, yeah, that part's in there. Okay. Engineering mode is your Zen space. There you go. I love the cozy Kerbal vibes. You got your hot jockey watching the live stream. Right on, man. I'm just trying to think about how this whole thing is going to go together. Is there any army here or armed forces that know if the trailer can detach on a helmet like this with a crane? I think it all comes off as one piece. I'm just wondering. That doesn't really have much bearing on what I'm trying to accomplish here. I'm just curious. You have friends, it's modular. Cool. Did the actual shuttle use a crane for integration or something like your Pad 1 AR-65? The shuttle used the VAB cranes, dude. It needed special brackets, but it used the same cranes that were made to build the Saturn V. See?
Discovery, go at throttle up.
It just needed a special bracket to rotate it just like any other stage. Shuttle would come in horizontally, right? And then they have a bracket, and that bracket attaches to the sides of the payload bay, right? And on the back of it, you have basically it looks like a hanger with a pivot point on the back of the bracket. And then on the front of the bracket, you have another hanger that's on a really long frame. There's a picture of it, but that's a picture of it from the wrong angle. They basically rotated the shuttle up in there. Yeah, there you go. There's the bracket. See that thing? So the big crane at the top of the VAB grabbed this piece. This piece has a hinge right there. It pivots. That's the bracket that attaches to the side of the shuttle. And then this part is all fixed, and then it pivots again right there. So they lift the shuttle off the ground, right? And then they pick up one side, they rotate it, and then when it's rotated into the vertical position, they separate the second crane, and then they just hoist it up and move it into position. I remember that bracket was also hard to build. The integration and pick... the integration and pickup points would be difficult to make. Yeah, see, there's the pieces right there. If my voice could, you know, not go today, that would be great. See, there they are rotating it. Pretty impressive, actually. The closest thing we've ever seen to this, RJ, is or the closest thing that some of you guys have ever seen to this is them rotating the SLS core into position. Which is probably the biggest. The SLS core, the Artemis 1 core is probably the biggest thing that's ever been rotated inside of the VAB. By a long shot, actually. Yeah, see. I'm on the tail end, Flykin. Whatever sickness I had is... I feel better, I'm fine. But it's lingering, and it's really, really freaking annoying. But anyway. Yeah. Could we do that with our shuttle? I don't know, man. That would be hard to do. I'd have to put pickup points for some type of bracket, or figure out a way to make that in Kerbal and make it work correctly. I'm not exactly sure I know how to do that. Well... Actually, hold on a second. You'd have to use Kraken pins on the side. Maybe if you use the shuttle's payload bay attachment points, you could. That's not a bad idea, dude. But the payload bay attachment points would mean I'd have to move the thing with the thing open, which is not really what I don't think that's a good idea. I got something. You did give me an idea, RJ. That's the right idea. I got something. Let me think about this for a second. Are rockets the heaviest things we've moved around on cranes and stuff? No, not even close. You want to see something crazy, Flankin? Here. No. I'll show you one of the heaviest things we've ever lifted with a crane. How's that? Pretty good, huh? Hoisting is cool, man. That's not even the biggest, believe it or not. That's just a barge crane. If I had to guess, one of the biggest things that we've ever lifted with a crane is most likely an oil rig, but I don't know for sure. That ship is quite large, huh? But down in Corpus, Texas, actually not far from Boca Chica, and this is probably not even the biggest one around. There's a crane right there. It doesn't look like much. That thing is designed to lift oil rigs off the ground and put them in the water. Yeah. It's designed to lift the rigs out of the water. That's like an entire oil rig. Das actually showed me this, dude. Now, you're looking at that crane, you didn't think it looks like much, right? Until you noticed all the cars and other stuff parked next to it. That thing is massive. Look. Actually, in this picture, there's a Liebherr 11,000 attached to it. Or next to it. The scale here is difficult to comprehend. Let me see if we can find a car or something. Yeah, there you go. There's the trucks. That's a Liebherr 11,000. Those are some trucks. That's the crane. That's the biggest crane I can think of off the top of my head. It lifts oil rigs out of the water. Entire oil rigs. Because that's what this yard is here. They build oil rigs out there. Yeah. That crane is absolutely massive. Pixar, it didn't happen. But that's... No, shut up. That's the biggest one I can think of, off the top of my head. That barge crane that you saw lifting that ship is smaller than this. But I'm sure that there's a bigger crane. I'm sure there's a bigger crane than that. I'd have to ask Goalie. He's my resident crane and hoisting expert. I want to see one getting lifted. It would be pretty cool. But that thing that I showed you guys, that barge crane lifting the spinner 2, that's almost as big as that. That is a huge ship. Absolutely huge. You know how heavy that crane has to be able to float on water and do that? It's pretty nuts. Always a bigger crane. Where did they make the North Sea oil rigs? There's probably some heavy lifters there too. North Sea oil rigs? It's somewhere in the Baltics, if I had to guess. It's insane how we went from rubbing sticks together a few thousand years ago to lifting up a small city out of the water. Yep. The crane's floating. Yes, this is a barge crane. Yep. Yep, that thing's floating. That's a ship. That's not fixed to the ground. It's floating. Just in case you didn't think for a second that we are masters of our physical domain. That's pretty damn cool. Wonder what the draft of that thing is? It's definitely semi-submersible hipstack. It has to be. It has to be. There's no way it's not. Right? There's no way that thing doesn't have, like, buku ballast tanks. Ballast tanks in it to sink it so it doesn't tip over when you pick something like that up. Yeah, guys, you seriously, crane rigging, hoisting, you can make a lot of money. There ain't no shortage of things that need to be picked up and moved. Basically, I'm trying to say you'll make a lot of money if you figure out how to lift things up and then put them down right after that. I want to lift this thing up and then move it over there. Yeah, crane hoisting. Crane operators need people. They need people. That's just another trade skill that's in shortage. What's this? Yeah. Woof. Woof. Look at that thing. Up to 100 meter jib. You gotta be kidding me. Alright. DJ, did I see your link? Let me see. Oh yeah, this thing. This thing is freaking huge. Oh yes, cranenetwork.com. Yeah, look at that thing. Holy hell. Wow. Oh yeah, it's, once again, I think the cranes that we use for building oil rigs are the biggest things that we have around. Yeah, the Sarens. That's a big crane too. I think this one might be bigger though. Anyway. Yeah, dude, what a freaking monster. It's awesome, dude. Awesome. Anyway. RJ, you did give me an idea. You know what? When I welded, I worked at Steel Mill AK Steel. And I've seen some 400 and 500 ton cranes. The ones in the VAB are that big. They're 500 ton gantry cranes, Talby. Yeah. Freaking nuts. Nuts. Alright, let me... RJ, I want to mess with something. Let's go here. Block 1C orbiter. Right here. Yeah, that's not supposed to be like that. We're trying something different. That's not supposed to be like that. But I digest. What were those? That was a way to get the shuttle to rotate off the runway. That had a Kraken drive in the back, dudes. So it, yeah, goes fast. 600 parts. 600 parts is what this thing ended up being. Yikes. Yowzers. Anyway. Let's close that up. And, so how would we do this? All right. 1/4/23, a year ago. Oh boy. Yeah, this thing was freaking money, dude. All right. I know Dart is massively smaller, but if I recall correctly, you use booster attachment points for the cradle. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna be moving it. I actually think NASA moved it with the ohms pods full. Ohms processing was pre-VAB lift, if I'm remembering correctly. How the if we're gonna reuse the orbiter, I guess I never solved that problem. How the heck are we gonna refuel those? There's no fuel flow because the ohms pod is attached via a panel. Oh, crap. They weren't fueled during lift. They were fueled before that. Okay, we ran into our first engineering challenge here, fellas. Jax, I don't think that'll work that way. The reason why the whole ohms pod is attached on a panel like that, guys, is because I don't want fuel from these cross-feeding into the shuttle engines. Small docking port, and use a truck to fill before lifting. Okay. Yeah, a small docking port with a truck probably would be the right way to do this. Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm wondering, did I ever get the shuttle transporter? Did I ever make the transport piece? No. You could always use the claw and just pretend it's a fuel and hook up. I hate the claw. Using the claw for doing an operation like that is not... It's imprecise, Aqualux. I don't want to do that. SpaceX is live for Axiom 3? Already? Oh. Well, shoot. Thank you for overdriving the sound. My ears are now gone. Definitely appreciate that one. There's a stream on the tubes.
At Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Oh, hell yeah.
For all European.
All right, dudes. Sweet. Well, let's switch over to AX3 coverage. And we'll get back to that in a second. SpaceX Axiom 3 launch coverage.